Good morning. How's everyone, all right? Not sure if this is a good slot now or not, just after everyone's had something to eat. But welcome, it's a privilege to be here with you. I'll just tell you a bit about the last couple of years, and I don't think I want to go back. I actually did spend 25 years at Network 10 and ran the company from 05 to 010, and I prided myself on the culture of 10 and what we achieved over those years. A little bit different reading it in the Fin Review at the moment, but we watched that one with interest. But it was interesting. I was first approached to come to SCA about 2 years ago, or Southern Cross Austereo. And the first observation, and I'd worked with the company for many years because we were a 10 affiliate in our regional assets. And interesting enough, the first thing I noticed was actually it wasn't one company. In actual fact, it was 4 companies. It was Austereo, otherwise known as a metro radio network. There were 78 regional stations, otherwise known as Southern Cross's regional network. There was a television network, which was affiliated principally to Channel 10. And then there was a 4th division, which they'd invested in, which was about 110 people in digital. And it was fascinating because the digital guys, I think, were on a digital island. It looked a little bit like Hayman Island. They were very comfortable, they were very happy. They kept to themselves. And I noticed in Sydney, and we're on the 16th floor, and I noticed they were on the 13th floor. But I never saw them come up and down. And I never saw anyone go down to them. So we had to get them off the island and bring them back to the mainland. And we integrated the business. But what we've done in the last couple of years is fundamentally tried to bring the business together as one, with one set of values, one set of strategic initiatives, and a drive and I guess a culture that works together. And as we put there, I do think that culture is your DNA, and I do think it is a competitive advantage. Now, I only have 20 minutes because I'm sharing the stage today with one of our directors, who's a very nice man, and he's sitting here, so I have to say that. But that's Rob Murray, and Rob is an evangelist, as I call it, on behalf of culture and how leaders can influence culture. So he's been instrumental in many respects about bringing it to the forefront of the board, the leadership group and the executive, and most importantly, all throughout the company. So you'll hear from him in a second. I did think, I could use 25, 30 minutes of the time and give him little until he reminded me that he will have the last say. So to that end, I'll try and carry on. Let me tell you a little bit about SCA. We actually have about 84 radio stations across the country. We also are an affiliate for the 9 network, which we just changed after 30 years of being with Channel 10. We also work with the 7 network in a couple of areas in Darwin and Tassie. We're the number 1 in terms of social. We're the number 1 in terms of, for a radio network, in terms of web presence. We've just launched a business, or tonight we'll have 500 people launching Podcast One. How many people in the room listen to a podcast? Outstanding. It's interesting, we've always thought of ourselves as a media company. The one thing you'll never hear from us is that we're a media company. We're actually an entertainment company. And there is a subtle difference, but a seismic change in moving from being a media company to an entertainment company. So one must put the customer first, and it's how we actually engage with that customer that's most important. And podcasting is one of the areas of moving, I guess, up the audio competency that we have from radio directly into podcasting. So hopefully you'll go to Podcast One at some point. So we'll launch that tonight. We also announced last week at our annual results that we're getting into out-of-home media. And we're going into large format screens in malls where there's a high dwell time. Why? Because we have a core competency that actually arguably should allow us to compete in that area of the market, which is a high growth market. And we should be able to do it quite seamlessly, professionally, and hopefully very successfully. We've got a market cap of about $1 billion. Thankfully, that's doubled, rough enough, in the last couple of years. And most importantly, we've got about 3,000 staff. So the people of SCA, there's about 2,500 the people that work with SCA every day. And we've got about another 500 people that work with us a lot. So it's about 3,000 people in total. In terms of, you might go SCA, but I don't really understand the brands. So think of the Hit Network, think of Triple M, think of Channel 9. We have the exclusive rights in Australia for Vivo, which were awarded to us out of London. We're launching Podcast One and, of course, our out-of-home business on the bottom there, which you won't know, but hopefully you will know over time. And, of course, there's sub-brands under that because that's part of our competency. We own the spectrum to bring digital radio to market, so we're bringing more digital radio stations to market. And you'll see those as Buddha and Hit and etc. So it's quite a large group of brands that operate within the company. And we're very proud that we can actually create brands, megaphone those brands and monetize those brands on the way through. So we are very much a branded company in the entertainment area. We talked about the people. We actually operate across 58 offices. Why? Because we have radio stations just about everywhere. And the first year I took the challenge and tried to get to every office in 1 year. I missed 2. I missed Kalgoorlie and Port Lincoln. But I got everywhere else because I thought it was important to go and physically be in front of the people, understand where they worked, what was good about it, what wasn't good about it. We found, does anyone know where Northam is? Northam's about 3 hours west of Perth. And it was quite interesting. I turned up in the car and it was actually school holidays and I had my wife and daughter and I looked up and down the street and I said, listen, just stay in the car. Don't get out of the car unless I call. Anyway, I looked over and there was our office and there was this rusty old sign and this rusty old annex that was falling down and I thought, maybe that's us. And I walked in and I had a chat to the guys. We had around about, I think it was 12 or 14 people there. And I said, what's going on with the building? And they said, well, actually, we own the one across the road, but no one's ever approved it. And there was this gorgeous old bank, beautiful architecture, and interesting enough, no one had ever approved because they'd never been to Northam to understand the problem. And I said, fine, let's approve it this afternoon, move on. We've since spent about $600,000. They're now in it. And what I can tell you is sales have moved up, the brand's moved up, and hopefully the culture's been positively influenced. It was a very simple thing to do in that regard. But we have a lot of highly creative teams. About 1,250 or 50% of the people at SCA are actually creative or creatively linked. And that includes our talent. They're some of the finest talent. I ask them, they always agree that they're very good. And I talk to them often, and whether it's Hamish and Andy or whether it's Eddie or whether it's whoever it might be, we pride ourselves on having relationships with each of these people on an enduring basis and very sustainable basis. No different to the relationship we want to have with shareholders. So we've got strong performing teams in sales. We've got the largest sales team in Australian media with about 780 people, probably only rivaled by Fairfax, given our breadth. And that's really interesting because we're in 58 offices. We broadcast 107 television signals, and we broadcast into all the metro markets, of course, and we've got people on the ground everywhere. And that's really important, and it's part of our DNA because what it does is we can invest on a local level, we know the community, we know what's happening, we want to tell local stories, and fundamentally we want to connect with those ecosystems in those particular markets. And that's one of the strengths of, hopefully, our business. So hopefully that's just a bit of insight into the business. I guess we'd never done a culture audit. Again, coming in a couple of years ago to the company, said, what have we been doing? Everyone said, well, we've done, staff satisfaction. And I said, okay. So we looked at that and that was okay. The staff satisfaction told us what principally we were good at. So everyone probably stopped doing that. And fundamentally what we're bad at, and everyone sort of tried to reject that. Or say, well, of course they would say that, wouldn't they? But at the end of the day, what we wanted to do was we're actually quite proud of the results in the satisfaction survey, but we wanted to go to a next level. And we therefore decided to do a culture audit back in October 2016 from memory. And we wanted to understand the culture and most importantly what the impact would be on our performance. Because if we were going to bring the company together as one company, not four, and if we had a strategic agenda, which I'm about to take you through, interesting enough, if we didn't have an engaged group of people at SCA, it would be worthless because no one would follow the journey. And ultimately, we wouldn't end up with the desired results that we wanted to put forward. And we need to do that to get long-term sustainable performance for our 5,000 shareholders because that's who we report to. just about every day. So looking at the strategic model, there's a lot of words on that page, but we actually didn't have a strategic plan for the company. So the board had been refreshed, management had been refreshed. We created a leadership group, which was effectively 6 senior people. Under that, we had an executive group with about 35, and cascading through that made up our 2,500 people. But what we needed was some train tracks, and we had to devise a strategy. So we went on a path of discovery with our board, with ourselves, and with our people as to what we thought we were good at. And we know that strategy is about making choices. It's not about sitting back and watching everyone else's choices. It's about making our choices first and doing it with the best information one possibly can. So what you'll see there is we wanted to create a winning aspiration. We wanted to know where we wanted to play. We wanted to know how we wanted to win. Effectively what our capabilities were. And finally, what systems needed to be put in place. So we've spent about $30 million a year upgrading our systems, processes, building, you name it, and how we connect across all of those vast geographies. So we knew we had that covered. We knew we had the people, and we knew that they actually had a very positive culture, but we just didn't know what it was. Most importantly, whilst we knew the values that we created, if we didn't have the people behind us, the strategy would ultimately fail, and we knew that very clearly. So we went on a journey, and the journey was to define that winning aspiration, and the phases go through in terms of its planning and its execution. So our winning aspiration was the first thing. Now I can tell you it took us 8 months to come up with a group of words that, interesting enough, would define where we wish to be in the future. The SCA, and that winning aspiration, in our opinion, lasts for about 5 years. And the reason I'm taking you through this is because we are a public company, we are on a journey. This is the first culture survey, which I'm about to share with you as well, that we've done. And all of this wouldn't come true if, in fact, we didn't know where we're at in that journey with regards to our people. We have department business plans, and Dr. Cook told us that disseminating the information and decision process through the groups is important. We think it's vital. So in actual fact, you'll see on the right-hand side there, we have major project groups. So we have about 4 groups running at any one point. One of those groups was podcasting. We didn't know about podcasting. We weren't sure because we were a radio company in a media segment. But funny enough, we went all through the UK and the US in the last 2 years. We spoke to all of the players, both tech, platform, data, analytics, and content providers. And effectively, we made a choice. And the choice was to partner with Podcast One because they had all the attributes that we wanted. But we'd envisioned that through a project group of people that were highly skilled in the area that said, tell us if you know a bit about podcasting, because we want you to join a group, and then we're going to visualise it. And once we've visualised it, we're going to put it into a BAU, a business as usual. And thankfully, tonight is the culmination of that. And we've already had, I think it's 4.5 million downloads in the past 4 weeks as we've been beta testing before we formally announce tonight. So all of those things must work in concert, otherwise it will once again fail. So our vision, or our winning aspiration, is that we are an entertainment company, as I've mentioned, first and foremost, that we deliver value-creating brands. And you will have seen from that, for 30 years we were Southern Cross Broadcasting. I never thought that was the best brand it could be. In actual fact, I thought Channel 9 was a better brand. So therefore, when we did our affiliate agreement for the long term going forward, what we elected to do was take their name rather than our own name. So if we're going to be an affiliate, let's be the best affiliate in the world. And appropriately, that's why we changed our names. We actually had to change channels and names at the one point because my good friend, Mr. Bruce Gordon, I said to him, listen, why don't I take your channel number and you can take mine because the content's swapping anyway. There was a fairly swift response on that, which was fine, but he's been busy. Leveraging off our core competencies. You have to know what you're good at and what you're not good at, otherwise you don't know how you can play in the future. Insightful services bind communities. I talked about the 107 individual markets that we operate within as a company. And we wanted to be the preferred entertainment company. Now that's quite interesting. We don't want to be the best. We don't want to be the largest. We don't want to be number one. We just want to be the preferred. Because I've always worked on a philosophy in my career that I actually don't often want to be in a partnership with anyone. But I want to have the best relationship with them I possibly can. Because I think partnerships often break down. It's always interesting at the start of a relationship, partnership, they often bring the lawyers in the room. And I apologise to any lawyers in the room. But once you're that, you've got the rule book, and if you step outside the rule book, you're in breach. Normally with a relationship, you can fundamentally build out that relationship and it becomes more sticky and more enduring as it goes on. So we don't want to be number one, we just want to be the preferred choice for our consumers and our audiences, whether they're watching or listening to us, or fundamentally whether they're trading with us. So we want to be that preferred party. So that was the statement that we came up with. After a very long time, we worked out in our mind what we thought we were very good at, and what was the heart and key competencies of SCA. And it was fundamentally three things: our brands, our localism, and our national reach. But of course, our people are vital. The sales coordination with the largest sales team in Australian media, coupled with research and insights, led by our people. None of the centre core competencies would be realised in the absence of the outer circle as we move through. So that was the simplicity of what we're now going through every office and talking to everyone about, and we're explaining this strategy to them. Now, in terms of, I'm not going to ask you to read that at all. There's only one thing at the top in regard to people. Without our people taking the initiative and showing the courage to make changes in the way SCA does business, the strategy will fail. So we're back to culture once again, that if we can't empower, lead, direct at times, our people, interesting enough, we will fail. And that is all about culture, in our opinion. So this was our first cultural audit in October 2016. I didn't know really what it meant, but I noticed Tony Martin in the audience today. I said, "So Tony, how do I read that? Really balanced?" And he said, "Well, there's some good things from this grant, there's some things you need to improve on." And as long as you're open to that, and I guess Mary talked about that in terms of vulnerability. You've got to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And what the cultural survey did was put a mirror in front of us so that we could understand what that was. What we also did, and I'll only show you one slide, and it was actually the way in which we collaborate. Because once again, across that many markets, that many offices, with that many people, if we don't collaborate, and if we remain in a very siloed mentality, and that could be down to Northern, or Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, metro versus regional. If we did that all the time, we'd never change, and we'd never actually progress as a company. But interesting enough, we took great heart from this, because in the top right-hand side, you'll see that 60% of the people, it actually looks pretty good in terms of the blue. We don't care about the bottom 13%. Now that could be a bit harsh, but I think that bottom 13% are going to be really hard to move. So what we're going to do is focus primarily on the 27% and see how we can move that 27% up to the next level. And if that's the case, we're going to end up with 87% of the company going in exactly the right direction. And you know what? The 13% just might follow. But if we're to start at the bottom and try and work up, I think we may miss the point in that regard. So we're actually quite encouraged by that challenge over the next couple of years. Dr. Cook also talked about leadership. So we did the survey and we had 1,250 respondents. And that's what they said about the senior leadership team, which is effectively the 6 senior leaders of the company. And we're very pleased with that, because if we don't lead with the right leadership behaviour, in actual fact, how can we ever expect the people within the business to follow that through? And media is an interesting place. We read a lot about it. It's very vocal. Media likes talking about media. So it's a very public position. So the leaders of our company must move forward in the right way with the right behaviours. What we also did was just have a look at some of the themes that were coming out of the cultural audit, and transparency and honesty. So we will be totally transparent and honest with our teams 100% of the time. If there's a reason we can't reveal something because we're publicly listed or it's market sensitive, we will tell them that. I do remember many years ago I was at Network 10 and we were launching Channel 1 and Channel 11, and I had 1,250 people in the company on satellite and whatnot, and we told them about it before we launched it to the market because we took them into our confidence. Now, media companies by general, a lot of them are journalists, but I didn't read one thing about it the following day. So we took a leap of faith to say, do you think we're going to bring everyone into our confidence, and do we think it'll leak? It didn't. It was magnificent. Actually, within the same week, there'd been a change at Channel 9, and they had a rooftop barbecue, and I read about it for another 3 weeks. And I thought that was interesting. So we do, I think transparency and honesty is important. I think education's important. I see Charles Sturt was up there. We couldn't find a training program that suited our company in terms of developing media practices and entertainment practices. So now Charles Sturt's faculty come in on their holidays, and we actually send 40 students a year of our people each year to there to actually go and study and have the experience of being on a university, just in case they haven't. And we call it the SCA Academy. But transparency, community, trust, education, honesty, innovation. If we don't do all of that, I won't be here in 5 years' time. But we do that, and that is part of our culture. So partnering, just to try and sort of bring this to a bit of a close, partnering with Human Synergistics, I think has been important. It's given us greater tools. We've been able to enable, measure, learn and improve about our own culture and actually how we can make it even better. And I think we could have continued to do client and internal satisfaction needs, and we probably would have been comfortable with that for some time. But it was a small leap of faith to get us to a position which gave us a wealth of information, if, of course, we opened the radar up and wanted to listen to that. So we want to create a high-performance culture. We know where we need to focus. We can drill down on that. We now have development plans that we do at a senior level, at an executive level, at a group level, at a state level, down to an individual level. And all of that aligns with our strategy. And as I said before, if the behaviour and the people aren't empowered, don't feel as if there's a positive culture in the company, ultimately the entire strategy of the company, the board and the executive will naturally fail. And we know that. So this is why it's so important. So in the end, I guess that's the final statement that I wrote one day on a plane when I was asked to, and that was that it defines the qualities and personalities of our organisation and can be the most valuable asset that you own. You've got to treat it respectfully, and it's got to evolve continually. So we have to continually learn and adapt in terms of the culture. And I think it will ultimately be attractive on the way through. So we're very proud of the fact of the journey we've gone through. We're only pretty young in that journey. As I say, October 2016. We're very proud of the fact that we know who we are, where we're going, what our winning aspiration is. I get a text a minute ago that they're debating in the Senate the media reform. Once again, I've been getting those texts now for nearly 3 weeks, every 4 hours, as Mr. Xenophon comes in or out, or Ms. Hanson comes in or out. People are now ringing saying, could you make a quote this afternoon? So I'm not sure if that's good, bad or indifferent. The funny thing is, media reform, which is well overdue, should happen. But the fundamental thing is we don't need media reform to grow and prosper as a company, because we're doing it on a very organic level, because we know the competencies we employ, we know the people and their capabilities, and we can grow in a very organic fashion. And I think that's very empowering for a company to do that we don't have to cut our way to profitability. And I'll tell you one final story, even though the clock tells me I'm over. There was one final story when I first joined the company, and our major shareholder was an investment bank. They owned 25% of the company. And I went to see that person, and they said, how many people are in the company, Grant? And I said, 2,571. That's a lot of people. And everyone else went, who worked with the boss went, oh, that's a lot of people. So you know what was coming. And then they said, how many salespeople do you have? And I said, 780. Oh, that's a lot of people. Everyone said, oh, that's a really lot of people. And the boss said to me, and he owned a piece of the company in a personal right. He said, the question is, Grant, is that too many or is that enough? And I said, I'm not exactly sure, but I think we might need more. And everyone went white. As an entertainment company, if you don't invest and you don't put into the company, ultimately, if you want to cut your way to prosperity, ultimately that won't work. So we had to put in. So we've been putting back into the company for a couple of years. And we've been putting it back into front of house activities, which has positively influenced the culture once again. We're putting it into marketing, talent, sales, insights, and everyone's been a part of that journey within the company to grow the company. And ultimately, in the first year, we grew the company by 20%. And we released last week that we grew by a further 40%. So we're pretty pleased with that outcome. But most importantly, I'm about to show you a video to finish. And what I did was I didn't brief anyone other than one of our video journalists. And I said, I want you to go and talk to people about culture. And I want you to cut it up and bring it back for me so that we can have a look what it says. That was the brief. Here's the video. I'll play it for you now. Thank you.
You know when you leave high school and you think like that time of getting to hang out with your friends all day is all over and like life's just going to suck and be depressing? That's not what SEA is. SEA is getting to come to work and actually hang out with your best mates all day.
What I love about this place is we work very hard to make it look like we're not working very hard at all.
I think it's really transparent. I think from the top down, it feels like everybody's on a level playing field in terms of communication.
What I love about SEA, wherever you are, Townsville, Adelaide, Brisbane, Perth, the culture is always the same. You walk into the place and you feel this immediate vibe, energy, people working together to achieve great radio. And it's such a humbling thing to be able to walk in and just feel like a family straight away.
When you first walk onto the floor in Triple M content, and you get a sense of the culture straight away.
Positive. This company, the way it's set up, the way all the staff are bred and educated to be inspired, it is so positive. If you walk into this building having a bad day, having had a fight with your girlfriend, your boyfriend, you walk in here and everybody is there to prop you up.
It's so refreshing to come somewhere that's extremely positive, extremely collaborative. We've got an incredible team that work very hard and everybody can contribute ideas. They're taken seriously and acted upon.
I've been with the company for 35 years and the culture hasn't always been this way. I've seen the good and the bad, and what we've got at the moment is really positive and really does impact on the business performance.
It doesn't matter whatever department you're working with in order to bring a solution to life or a campaign to life or to launch a new show or to rebrand 68 regional radio stations, there's a collective of amazing, amazing people.
My mum passed away last year and these guys were amazing. They were just with me the whole time, supported me, and I have so much respect for this business and the employees because they're not just employees, they're amazing people.
The culture here is one that's really supportive and encourages people to kind of be courageous and take chances, and great things come from that.
If there's no culture in a company, you don't want to come to work, and if you don't want to come to work, you're not going to be doing your best work. So culture is everything.
Absolutely, culture is probably the most important thing that I look at, even in terms of hiring. I hire on culture first and skill second, to be honest.
When a team's able to collaborate with a positive culture, it really drives results.
Culture is extremely important in a workplace, because if you have a really shitty job where you have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you want to be coming into a place where you actually like the people, and I generally hate everyone, so it's a real bonus.
We spend so much time at work. Over those 35 years I would have spent many hours. I feel very supported.
3 words that spring to mind would be vibrant, friendly and inclusive.
Collaboration, discovery and transparency.
Do you know what a circumflex is?
Hell no, I don't know what the circumflex is. Should I?
Do you have a question about circumflex? That sounds like a WWE move.
It's the complex.
The circum what?
It's a lovely kind of thing.
Very familiar with the circumflex. I'm glad you asked. We have a joke in the content director group that we want nothing but ocean views. So lots of blue.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, I'm doing my lip sync thing. Okay.